to Deadscape Diaries, the place where forgotten signals, cursed ground, and things best left alone come crawling back to life. Tonight you're getting more than just a single nightmare. This is a full descent, a curated descent, into some of the most disturbing encounters ever documented. Each story drips with dread, stitched together from corrupted transmissions, anonymous accounts, and whispers that should have stayed buried. Dim the lights, put your phone on silent. These aren't stories you listen to. They're ones you survive. Story 1. I've been picking up extra shifts at the gas station off Old Pine Road. It's not glamorous, but the night pay is decent and I'm saving every dime to get out of here. My lease is up in a few months and I've had it with this place. Small towns are the same everywhere. If something weird happens, folks pretend it didn't. People disappear and everyone shrugs it off like a stray cat wandered off. I've been pulling back-to-back closing shifts, 17 in a row if you're counting. Every night I mop up soda spills, wipe down the slushy machine, restock the shelves, and lock up around 1 a.m. I'm usually gone by 1:30, sometimes closer to 2 if there's a mess in the bathroom or a drunk dude decides to get chatty. It starts on night 6. I heard someone knock on the loading bay door, not the front entrance, the metal one in the back by the dumpsters. No one uses that door except the delivery guys, and they show up around noon. The first knock wasn't loud, just deliberate. Knock, knock. Pause. Knock, knock. I waited a minute, then peeked through the slat in the back room window. Nothing, just a security light buzzing above the bins and the usual puddles of old rainwater. I figured maybe it was an animal, or the wind. Maybe I was just exhausted, but I still flipped the deadbolt just in case. The next night it happened again, then again, the night after that. Always around 12:30, always the same rhythm. Knock, 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 drag. The dragging noise, it sounded like someone pulling a burlap sack across concrete. I tried to brush it off, told myself it was nerves. The graveyard shift does that to you, messes with your brain. I started bringing in earbuds to drown it out with music. But then, 10 days in, I found something. A receipt, one of ours, stuck under the back door. Only this one had "You're next" written in smeared ink across it. The timestamp was from 12:29 a.m. My heart dropped. I checked the security footage, but the camera at the back had been glitching out since the storm last week. It showed nothing but static between 12:20 and 12:35. I called my manager. He laughed and told me someone was probably screwing with me. Real helpful. I started keeping a crowbar behind the counter after that. Then came the night I saw him. It was just after 1. I was restocking the cigarette rack when I caught movement in the corner of the monitor. The grainy black and white feed from the front window. A man was standing outside, not facing the door, just standing sideways, like he'd forgotten where he was supposed to go. He didn't move. His jacket looked soaked, but it hadn't rained in days, and his hair, it looked like it was coming out in clumps. I pressed the mic on the intercom. We're closed. He slowly turned his head toward the camera and smiled. It was a strange, strained grin, the kind you get when you're mimicking a smile without knowing what it's supposed to feel like. He raised one hand and tapped the glass, then he mouthed something. I couldn't read his lips, but I knew whatever it was meant for me. He vanished before I could do anything. One blink and he was gone. I started checking every lock 3 times a night, kept my keys in my fist, stayed under the fluorescent lights. I even thought about quitting, but the money, you know how that goes. The last shift I worked was Thursday. It was dead quiet, no knocks, no dragging, just the hum of the freezers and the sound of my own breathing. At 1:10 a.m. I heard something fall in the stockroom. I went to check, figured a crate had flipped over. The light in there was flickering again. I stepped inside. That's when I felt it, breath on the back of my neck. I spun around and nothing. But I swear I heard someone whisper my name. I bolted out the back room, and there, standing behind the counter, was someone in my uniform. But it wasn't me. Not exactly. She was my height, same hair, same smudge of grease on the shirt, same scar on the wrist I got when I dropped a glass bottle my first week on the job. She looked up, smiled, and I felt like I was looking into a cracked mirror. I froze. She tilted her head, like a dog hearing a strange sound. "You don't lock the side door properly," she said. Same voice, same cadence, like a perfect imitation. But it was off, hollow, like she was repeating it from a recording. She reached behind the counter and pulled out a receipt. It had something scrawled across it in thick marker. I took your place. I don't remember much after that. When I came to, I was here. Wherever here is. A room with stone walls and no windows. The ceiling leaks. There's a cot and a bucket and a single bulb that flickers like it's afraid of the dark. She visits me sometimes. She talks to me in my voice, wears my uniform, twists her mouth into my smile, practices. She's taken my life, my job, my name, and no one's noticed. Why would they? No one looks closely at the cashier at the night shift. No one asks questions, not in this town. She has my face now, my rhythm, my little habits. She even bites inside of her cheek the way I do when I'm nervous. And she's still out there. So if you stop by the station on Old Pine, and the girl at the register gives you a crooked little smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes, don't speak. Don't turn your back. And for the love of God, don't follow her into the dark. Story 2. I don't know why I'm writing this down. No one's going to believe it. Not really. If I hadn't lived through it myself, I'd call it a delusion, or grief, or madness. But it wasn't any of those. And something out there knows I made it out. For years I've been flying solo drones into remote wilderness zones, documenting abandoned radar outposts, derelict watchtower, collapsed ski lifts, that kind of thing. The kind of places time forgets. Some of my videos went viral, most didn't. But last month, I received a strange tip. Anonymous, no message, just coordinates, embedded in the metadata of a corrupted email attachment. Northern Montana, elevation over 8,000 feet, no marked trails nearby. They called it the Hollow Relay. I should have known better. I loaded my drone, packed a satellite uplink, and made the hike alone. The site wasn't listed on any survey records or topographic maps, but when I arrived it was definitely there, an old military comms relay, cradled in the saddle between two jagged peaks. The dish was fractured, black cables twisted like vines down the rusted tower. The doors of the control room hung half off, shredded like something had tried to crawl through. The air felt wrong, thin, electrical, like being inside a live wire. I set up near the base, launched my drone, and began my sweep. The relay's internal layout was strange, longer than it should have been, deeper than the mountain could have allowed, tunnels that curved too sharply, corridors lit by flickering emergency bulbs powered by nothing I could trace. Still, the signal was solid, crystal clear, so I sent the drone deeper. That's when I started hearing the static. It wasn't coming from the drone, it came from my headset, soft, rhythmic bursts. Then came the whispering. I assumed it was feedback, cross-channel interference, something technical, but when I reviewed the captured audio later, none of it was there. The feed showed my drone dipping through a tunnel, at least 200 meters below the mountain surface, except there was no indication of a descent, no shift in barometric pressure, no incline. It was like gravity had changed direction when I wasn't looking. Then the camera picked up movement. At the edge of the feed, something slithered out of the frame, long, thin, segmented. I paused. The drone reversed, but the thing was gone. I should have brought it back, but curiosity is stronger than fear when you're behind a screen. I pushed on. The drone entered what looked like a broadcast chamber, an amphitheater of consoles and receivers, all completely gutted. There were cables growing from the walls like roots. At the center of the chamber was a figure, human-shaped, but wrong. It stood motionless in the middle of the room, skin ashen, stretched too tight across a body that didn't seem designed for it. The eyes were covered by glimmering black visor wires, threading into the skull like veins, and its arms hung limply, but they were long, too long. I counted the fingers. There were 12. The second the drone's camera focused on it, the figure twitched, not like it was waking up, like it had just noticed it was being watched. I started pulling the drone back, slow at first, trying not to panic, but then the static returned, louder, layered, beneath it a voice buzzing through. Not your signal. The drone feed glitched once, then again. Then it froze. Then the camera turned around. I didn't do that. I swear I didn't touch the controls. The view swung 180 degrees and pointed directly at me. Not the drone. Me. Here, on the monitor, was a live feed of my own face, sweaty, pale, eyes wide in horror. The feed was coming from inside the relay. I tore off my headset, heart thundering in my ears. Somewhere behind me, the door to the control room slammed shut. I ran. No packing up, no second thoughts. Just bolted down the trail, lungs burning, the thin air clawed at my throat. I didn't look back. For the next 2 days, I didn't touch my gear. Couldn't bring myself to even glance at the footage. But the drone was still transmitting. I checked the feed again, finally. It was still in the relay, still transmitting. But now, the drone wasn't moving. I was. Somehow the drone's camera was following me, through cities, alleys, parking garages, always behind me, always just out of sight. Even now, it's still live. I've tried disconnecting everything. No internet, no Bluetooth. I even shattered the drone, crushed the control unit, burned the remains. Didn't help. The feed's still active, still showing me from behind. The angle shifts slightly every time I move. I checked the metadata again yesterday. A new location was embedded in the code, my apartment. More specifically, my bedroom. And last night, just before I fell asleep, I heard it again through the wall. Bursts of static, followed by whispering. The same voice. Not your signal. This time it knew my voice. And tonight, I think it wants me to answer. Story 3. I'm writing this down because I need something real in front of me. Something that'll still be here in the morning, even if I'm not. I don't know what to call this. A confession, a case file, a breadcrumb trail for whoever finds the door unlocked. Maybe it's just a lifeline I'm throwing myself. Something to prove I'm still me, still here. Because that's the first thing you lose. Not your body, not your home, not even your sense of safety. You lose your certainty. I started seeing Dr. Halbrook about 8 months ago, after I had what my GP continuously labeled a reactive collapse. Translation, I fell apart at work, in front of everyone, and couldn't put myself back together. He came highly recommended by my manager, who'd been through something similar. Said Halbrook was unconventionally effective. That should have tipped me off, but back then I wasn't looking for answers. I was looking for relief. His office was in this conventional townhouse in Victoria Park, the kind of place that tries to look residential, but you can tell no one's lived there in years. It had a thick maroon carpet, windows covered in gauzy curtains, and walls lined with books in dead languages. The air smelled like vetiver and candle wax, like someone had tried to mask the smell of mildew with something worse. He had an academic look, tall, early 50s, maybe. Always in charcoal suits, no tie, glasses that didn't quite fit his face. His voice had a low-frequency calmness to it, like he was trying not to wake something sleeping nearby. Our sessions were quiet. He never gave advice, never said things like, "That must be hard," or "Tell me more." He just listened. Sometimes he'd tilt his head, or blink slowly like he was syncing up with me. It was weird, but it worked. For the first time in years, I felt heard, not fixed, but heard. Then came the 7th session. That number sticks with me. 7. End of the first month. I just opened up about a recurring dream. The one where I wake up to find every photo in my apartment replaced with pictures of me sleeping. I remember Halbrook looking thoughtful. He said, it's remarkable how many people give away copies of their keys without remembering they did. I laughed, confused. You mean like losing them? No, he said. Like trusting someone enough to forget they ever needed to ask. Then he smiled, just barely. I brushed it off, a weird philosophical thing maybe, but something about it settled under my skin and stayed there. The next day I noticed my bathroom mat was damp, not soaked, just used, like someone had stepped out of the shower and didn't bother drying off. I live alone. At first I blamed myself, sleepwalking, bad memory, but then came more. The chain on the door was unlatched one night when I came home. My desktop wallpaper changed to an older photo I swear I deleted. My freezer, not the fridge. The freezer was open an inch and quietly dripping. Nothing loud, nothing stolen, just rearranged. I didn't tell Halbrook. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to catch it. So I set traps. A strip of masking tape across the closet door, salt across the windowsills. I set up webcams to record while I was gone, but the footage would glitch. Just static between 2:04 and 2:17 p.m. every Tuesday. Same exact timestamp every week. I bought a new lock, then a second one, then a chain, then a bar. The next time I showed up at his office, Halbrook opened the door before I knocked and said, "The new security measures, do they help you sleep?" I didn't answer. I just sat down, shaking. He never acknowledged the comment again, just asked me to breathe with him. That night I didn't go home. I checked into a hotel room under a fake name, paid in cash, turned my phone off, and still, the next morning, the concierge handed me a sealed envelope left by a visitor. Inside was a sealed item, my old apartment key, bent at the tip like something had forced it into a lock that didn't fit. No note, just a faint scorched fingerprint on the envelope flap. I ghosted therapy, blocked Halbrook's number, left my job, moved to Fremantle. Not just a new address, a whole new routine. Used prepaid cards, bought secondhand furniture, didn't tell anyone where I was going, not even my family. 3 months passed, nothing happened. Then one morning, a knock. Not at the door, at the window. Second floor, no fire escapes. I didn't answer. A week later there was a package on my doormat, no label. Inside, a USB drive. I plugged it into an old laptop I don't use for anything else. It contained only one file, a video. I pressed play. It was footage of me sleeping in my new bedroom. The angle was from above, like from a ceiling corner. I could see the blankets rising and falling with my breath. At the 43-second mark, the image jolted. A figure stepped into frame, not clearly, just a silhouette of a man, tall, straight-backed, watching me, breathing in time with mine. He didn't move, just stood there, like he was timing something. When I paused the video, the timestamp said Session 12, Final Phase Initiated. I ran, again, Airbnb this time, middle of nowhere, no names, no records. And still, tonight, tucked under the door of the room I hadn't left in days, I found a folded page, torn from one of my old journals. One I left behind, my handwriting at the top, in shaky, red ink. Assessment complete. Host adaptation, 96%. Resistance, minimal. Prepared for Phase 3. Beneath it, in a different hand, finer, more careful, almost surgical. Thank you for your cooperation. You may now return to baseline. But I never wrote that. And as I finished typing this, I just heard it again. Not footsteps, not knocking, a click, the deadbolt, turning from the outside. Story 4. When I was 17, my family moved from the Texas Gulf Coast to rural Mississippi. My dad had landed a new job managing a renovation project out near Jackson, and with housing cheap in the countryside, we settled into a rundown cottage at the edge of a half-forgotten farming village. I say village, but really it was more like a place where the road just happened to pass through a few weather-worn houses, a tiny church and a gas station that also sold worms, cigarettes, and expired cans of ravioli. The town was quiet, too quiet. I didn't have any friends nearby, and the patchy cell signal meant most of the afternoons were spent offline, but we had a scrappy blue heeler mix named Duke, and he kept me company when I wandered the property or explored the woods out back. A few weeks into the move, I found a narrow path just past treeline. Looked like an old service trail, overgrown, rutted from what might have once been truck tires, and lines with metal rail spurs half buried in the mud and moss. Later, I found out it was an abandoned timber trail from decades back. The county still technically owned it, but no one maintained it anymore. Duke and I made that trail our second home. We'd walk it every weekend, sometimes for hours. I found rusted out tools, forgotten deer stands, and even a collapsed hunting blind that had partially been popped up with sticks and brush. Someone had once tried to turn it into a little hut. Looked like a teepee made of logs and branches barely held together. That teepee became a weird little game for us. I'd duck inside and crouch low, listening as Duke trotted in confused circles outside, barking, tail wagging. He never figured out he could just come inside. It was our strange little ritual, and it never got old. Most days we never saw another soul out there, but there was one day I'll never forget. It was early October, still warm, but the leaves had just begun turning. I asked my dad to drop me off at the trailhead while he ran errands in town. The drive was a good 20 minutes down the back roads, and the plan was that he'd come pick me up in 2 or 3 hours. Seemed simple enough. We got there around 5 in the evening. The sun was already low, slanting through the trees in streaks of orange and gold. Duke bolted out of the truck the second the door opened, and my dad reminded me, "Same pickup spot. I'll be back by dark." I gave him a thumbs up and watched the truck disappear around the bend, gravel crunching beneath the tires. And it was just me, Duke, and the whispering pines. The walk started off like any other. I followed our usual loop through the timber trail, past the hollow tree that always made Duke bark for no reason, and even spent a few minutes hiding in the old teepee for old time's sake. But as the light started to shift from golden to blue, I figured it was time to make my way back towards the pickup point. That's when it happened. I'd taken a narrow deer path to shave off some time, one I'd walked before without issue. As we rounded the bend, I glanced back out of habit, just a quick look over my shoulder. There, maybe 30 feet back, was a man. I didn't hear him approach, didn't notice any footsteps. He had just appeared, like he'd stepped out from between the trees. He was tall, pale-skinned, wearing what looked like dark jeans and a light gray windbreaker. He wasn't carrying anything, wasn't walking fast, but something about him was just off. It's hard to explain. It wasn't what he looked like. He wasn't doing anything obviously threatening, but the way he walked, it felt wrong, deliberate, like he was trying to walk normally, but was just a little too smooth, a little too steady. No bounce in his step, no shift in his weight. I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Trying to act casual, I clipped Duke's leash back on and picked up the pace. I didn't want to spook him, or myself, but I also didn't want the man getting any closer. As I pushed ahead, I kept glancing behind me. The man was still there, keeping pace, maybe 15 feet now. No phone service, no way to call for help. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely hear Duke's nervous whimpering. We broke out of the path onto the wider trail that led to the parking lot. Dusk was heavy now, the deep purple color where everything turns into shadow. But I could still see, still make out the man that was behind me, closer, no more than 10 feet. I tried not to run, tried to act like I hadn't noticed him at all. Maybe he was just a hiker, maybe he was lost, maybe I was being paranoid. That's what I told myself, but my instincts screamed otherwise. I finally reached the clearing where the gravel lot sat next to the weathered picnic bench, but my dad wasn't there. There was only one vehicle in the lot, a battered silver pickup truck, lights on, engine running, facing the woods, the driver's silhouette sat unmoving behind the wheel. It wasn't my dad's truck. With nowhere else to go, I sat down at the bench. Duke pressed close to my leg. He whined, high-pitched and constant, and started pawing at the dirt beneath the bench, digging like he was trying to hide. I checked my phone again. No signal. I kept my eyes fixed on the phone screen, pretending to scroll, pretending not to notice the man stepping out of the woods. He didn't walk towards me. He didn't say anything. He went straight to the truck, got in, and shut the door. And just sat there, with the headlights still off, engine still running. No movement, no departure, just waiting. 10 minutes passed, then 20. No texts, no calls. My dad was late. And that man stayed in his truck, doing nothing, just sitting, staring, idling in place. That was the longest 20 minutes of my life. I kept telling myself he was just resting, maybe waiting for someone, but Duke never stopped whining, never stopped digging, and I never stopped watching those headlights. Eventually, finally, he backed out of the lot, turned and disappeared down the road. 10 minutes later, my dad rolled in looking confused and apologetic. "Oh heck, I completely forgot I had to come get you," he said, rubbing the back of his neck. Time got away from me. I didn't say a word on the ride home, and I never went back to that trail again. Story 5. I work in digital forensics, not the kind in crime dramas. No gun holsters or tense interrogations, just a desk, 3 monitors, and endless lines of code. My specialty is data. deleted files, hidden drives, corrupted logs. If someone's trying to erase something, I can usually pull it back. Last month, I got a contract from a private firm that usually deals with missing persons. A teenager had vanished. Male, 17. Last known location was his room during a video call with his high school therapist. Police had nothing, no forced entry, no signs of struggle. Just one last line in the chat window. Still here. My job was simple. Extract everything from his laptop. I started with standard procedures. Pulled the hard drive, cloned it, ran recovery tools. Oddly, nothing was deleted. But there was a single file that stood out. A folder labeled Shimmer. Inside, dozens of short video clips. No titles, no metadata, no creation dates, just thumbnails. Frames from video calls. But every clip had something off in each one. The boy's image was slightly wrong. One had his face blurred like a corrupted JPEG. Another had too many fingers. Another showed him staring at the camera unmoving for 6 minutes. No blinking, mouth slightly open, like he was caught mid-breath. I watched them all, at first just out of duty, but soon I realized the background of each video, his room, was changing. Slowly, incrementally. First, the posters were missing, then the books. Eventually, the bed was gone. By the last video, it was just him, sitting cross-legged in a gray void, still wearing his hoodie, not blinking. The moment I closed the folder, my monitor flickered. Then the laptop fan spun up, despite it being powered off. A text document appeared on my cloned drive. Plain text, no file type. It just said, "We've almost finished compiling him." I thought it was a leftover cache, some deepfake program or ARG gone too far. But the deeper I dug, the stranger it got. File paths led nowhere, audio logs played in reserve. And buried in System 32, I found a single corrupted audio file that when played, sounded like metal dragging across glass. The therapist, whose name I traced to a third-party wellness app, had no other clients listed. In fact, the app's domain had been deregistered 2 years ago. I tried to contact the hosting company. They told me the server never existed, that it had been flagged and black-holded after several complaints about visual contamination. I didn't know what that meant until the next morning. My home setup is clean, air-gapped, no Wi-Fi. But when I booted my desktop to start logging what I'd found, I saw the Shimmer folder on my main drive. Same files, same thumbnails. But now, there was one new clip, titled, "You." I opened it. It showed me from the webcam, except I hadn't turned it off. I was just sitting there, staring at the screen, slack-jawed. But the weirdest part? The reflection in the monitor showed a different version of me, standing, watching from behind, eyes glowing faintly. Too tall, too still. I unplugged everything, scrubbed my drives, even smashed the cloned laptop. But that night, my phone vibrated once. No ringtone, just a dull hum. One new message. "Ready to process. Accept input." I didn't reply, but I didn't sleep either. Over the past few days, every screen I pass shows flickers. The reflections don't quite match. In one shop window, my reflection turned its head before I did. Last night, I caught myself mouthing something silent while brushing my teeth, only it wasn't me doing it. Now I keep hearing a noise, like a low modulated tone. Whenever I'm near electronics, the same sound from that corrupted file. I can't make it stop. Just a few hours ago, a folder appeared on a USB drive I'd never inserted. It was labeled, "Merge Complete." Inside was just a single document, a checklist. Identity mapping, 100%. Focal sync, 100%. Behavioral mimicry, 99%. Conscious override, in progress. At the bottom, a signature line. My name, already signed. I think something was built from that boy's session. Not a virus, not a malware. A replacement. And I think it's already testing me for viability. So if you see someone who looks like me, don't follow. Don't answer. Don't believe anything it says. Because I don't think I'm the one writing this anymore. If you've made it this far, congratulations. But don't get too comfortable. These kinds of stories have a way of sticking with you, like a signal that never quite fades, even after the screen goes dark. If you enjoyed tonight's descent into the strange and terrifying, leave a like, hit subscribe, and consider sharing Deadscape Diaries with someone who sleeps with the lights on. Until next time, keep one eye on the static, and whatever you do, don't answer the whispers.